The studio froze. A little girl dangled from the edge of the stage lights, her small hand slipping against the hot metal bar. The audience gasped, dozens of phones lifted high, recording but not moving. The cameras kept rolling, hunting for drama. And then, from the shadows, the janitor dropped his mop and lunged forward. His rough hand seized her wrist just as she fell. For a heartbeat, the world went silent, breath held, eyes wide. Then she was in his arms, sobbing into his faded uniform. A man shouted, "He saved her." Relief rippled through the crowd like thunder. But from the director's chair came a voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Get that janitor off my stage. He's ruining the show." Samuel Brooks, 60 years old, held the trembling child tighter, whispering, "You're safe now." Yet even as cheers rose, whispers of contempt slid through the air, reminding him that to some, he was still nothing but a shadow with a broom. His name was Samuel Brooks, a janitor with a bent back and hands worn rough from decades of labor. Every night he scrubbed the glossy floors of the television studio, where bright lights made celebrities gleam like untouchable stars. But to the people who worked there, he was invisible. "Old trash man," they muttered as they brushed past him, their laughter echoing against marble walls. Samuel never fought back. He only lowered his eyes, pushed his cart, and carried on. That night, when he saved the little girl, he thought maybe, just maybe, things would change. For a brief moment, the audience applauded him like a hero. But before the echoes faded, the studio manager stormed across the floor, his fingers stabbing the air. "You embarrassed us in front of millions. A janitor stealing the spotlight? You're finished." Samuel's chest tightened. The child still clung to him, her small voice breaking through the noise. "Don't fire him. Please, he saved me." Her parents rushed forward, pulling her away, whispering sharply, "We'll take care of this." Their faces showed more concern for the show's image than the man who had risked his life. That same night, Samuel was dismissed. No warning, no thanks, just a paper folded into his hand, a dismissal notice. The next day, whispers spread like wildfire. He made a scene. He wanted attention. Studio doors that once opened to his quiet footsteps now slammed shut. The man who caught a child from death was cast out into the cold, condemned not for failure, but for daring to be seen. The years passed like heavy stones. Samuel drifted from one odd job to another, sweeping parking lots, fixing broken chairs, hauling trash no one else wanted to touch. His back curved lower, his breath grew shorter, but he carried on in silence. In his wallet, folded and worn thin, he kept a newspaper clipping of that night in the studio. The photo was grainy, but you could still see it, a janitor clutching a child who nearly fell from the rafters. That scrap of paper was his only reminder that he had once been more than invisible. 15 years later, Samuel sat in his tiny apartment, sipping bitter coffee, the walls peeling around him. The city outside hummed with indifference. Then came the sound, deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. Engines. He rose, joints aching, and shuffled to the window. A convoy of black cars rolled down the cracked street and stopped directly in front of his building. Neighbors poured out, whispering, "What's happening? Who are they here for?" Men in suits stepped out first, scanning the crowd, and then she appeared. A young woman in a tailored navy dress, tall, confident, her stride cutting through the silence. Samuel's breath caught in his throat. Something about her eyes, steady, luminous, achingly familiar. She walked straight toward his door. And when she finally spoke, her voice shook him to his core. "Mr. Brooks, do you remember me?" Samuel's hand trembled as he gripped the doorway, staring at her. The wide, frightened eyes of the child he once pulled from the stage lights were now sharpened with strength and resolve. She was no longer the trembling girl who clung to his chest, she was a grown woman, her voice carrying the weight of justice. Behind her stood a tall man in military uniform, her brother, his medals gleaming under the sun. The neighbors who once sneered at Samuel now leaned closer, stunned into silence. His voice cracked, raw with disbelief. You're the little girl." Her eyes shimmered. "You saved me when no one else would. I built my life on that moment. I became a lawyer to fight for people like you, people they try to erase." She turned to the crowd, her words sharp as a gavel. This man was fired for saving a child. Today, we honor him for the hero he always was. The suited men opened a case, revealing a medal and a proclamation signed by the governor. Gasps rippled through the street as cameras clicked. For the first time in 15 years, Samuel's name was spoken not with disdain, but with reverence. His knees weakened under the flood of vindication, but the young woman reached out, steadying him with a firm hand. "Stand tall, Mr. Brooks. They will see you now." The applause swelled until it echoed off the walls of every building on the block. Samuel's neighbors, who once muttered, "Just a janitor," now clapped with tearful eyes. The young lawyer stepped closer, fastening the medal around his neck, her voice breaking with gratitude. "Because of you, I learned that real courage isn't in the spotlight. It's in the shadows, where no one claps, and yet you still choose to act." Samuel touched the medal with his rough fingertips, the weight of it pressing deeper than gold. For years, he had been treated as invisible, reduced to a broom and a uniform. Now, in the open daylight, he stood as proof that dignity cannot be erased. His voice trembled, yet every word landed like stone. "I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just couldn't let a child fall." Silence spread, heavy and reverent. Every face turned toward him carried the same truth: he had been more than a janitor all along. He had been the measure of what it means to be human. And for the first time in his life, Samuel Brooks lifted his head, not as a man dismissed, but as a man remembered.